to another episode of The Wrong End of the Snake with your hosts, the Sultans of Sound, the Admirals of Audio, Pooch and Tater. Follow us at all your favorite social media outlets at Wrong End of the Snake. Watch the live stream on YouTube, but if you want to interact, make sure you subscribe to the Zoom webcast and ask questions of the guests and these dynamic hosts as the show unfolds before your very eyes. And without further ado, here are your hosts, Pooch and Tater!
Hey everybody, welcome to The Wrong End of the Snake. It's a webcast about audio, touring, and the relationships we have built between our road families. Tater and I have had an 18-year relationship on The Wrong End of the Snake with bands like Dead Nugent, Kid Rock, Slash, Stone Temple Pilots, Prophets of Rage, Iron Maiden, and most notably 10 years together with Linkin Park. My co-host, Kevin Tater McCarthy, is a world-class monitor engineer with over 30 years in the business. I'm very proud to call him my friend. He has 9 Top Dog Monitor Engineer of the Year awards and 2 Parnelli Monitor Engineer of the Year awards. I'm Ken Van Druten, aka Pooch. I'm a front house engineer with 3 decades in the music industry. I'm a 3-time Grammy nominated recording engineer. I have 8 Top Dog Front of House Engineer of the Year awards, and I'm also a winner of the Parnelli Front of House Engineer of the Year award. Let's do a little housekeeping. Please use the chat window of the Zoom app to communicate amongst yourselves. If you're streaming from our YouTube channel and you want to be able to ask questions of our guests, register to be on the Zoom call for future episodes. Links to register are in all of our social media. If you have any questions for our guests, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of the Zoom app. We will answer as many questions as possible during the hour and then answer any leftover questions in our Q&A overtime episode. Look for that to be uploaded to our YouTube channel in a few days. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget to visit our social media. YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook is at Wrong End of the Snake. Tater, why don't you tell us about our guests this week?
All right, this week we have Frank SGAMBELLONE. Frank has been doing gigs before he even had a driver's license. After many years of traveling around the Northeast in vans, cars, and planes, trains, and automobiles, he decided to go first to the New England Technical Institute, that's NTI, where he studied electronics, then went to Full Sail for the recording arts. After realizing that he didn't like the studio, he was hired by Shoko, where he embarked on a long and sordid front-of-house career, which included artists as Godsmack, Rob Zombie, Alice in Chains, Dixie Chicks, Goo Goo Dolls, many, many more. He now mixes Luke Bryan and has become one of the most respected audio system design engineers at Claire Global, a guy who loves the guitars, Frank SGAMBELLONE.
How you doing, guys?
Good, good. Thanks for being here, Frank.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I think I've lost Pooch. I've lost him for a moment.
Oh,
yeah, so did I.
There you are.
There
Oh,
it is.
sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming, man. Appreciate it. You know,
for having me.
part of we always say that part of the reason that we do this is to, you know, share with the music community some of the people that are at the top of their game, but really it's about staying in touch with our friends.
I'm glad we can do this.
It's so great. It's so great to see you, man. It's been a while. You know, you've always been one of my favorite guys to run into out on the road, you know? So we're happy to have you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's been a long time of not annoying people with a PA system at this point. I've found other ways to annoy my family. I've found ways to annoy my neighbors. But
yes,
no, it's been good. I'm glad to see it. It's funny. We've all been working with each other, but it's been so long. Tater and I worked together on Godsmack for quite a while.
Yeah.
Just long enough to know it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think, Pooch, we've only actually done 1 or 2 gigs together. The Limp Bizkit in New York. the AOL sessions, remember?
Yes.
Another great moment in touring audio. We took apart an XL4 from the case, from the patch bay, everything, dragged it up the stairs,
Drug
did
it
a gig,
upstairs. Yeah.
dragged it back out, all listening to a moan.
You know, what's so funny is I just did that gig. Well, not just, but like in 2019, maybe 2018, Jay-Z reopened that club.
Is that Webster Theater, Webster Hall?
Yeah, Webster Paul or whatever it was. And they spent the money, $1 million to put an elevator in that thing. And so as we're loading things into this freight elevator, I was telling that same story. I'm like, they're all complaining, oh, this is hard. We got to get it off the sidewalk. And, and I'm like, you have no idea. We used to drag XL4s up the staircase.
Yeah. You should go over to Scotland and try loading into the Barrowland circa 95. Exactly. Then you'll have an idea what tough guys are.
No complaining there.
That's exactly right.
The only complaining was from the guy getting thrown out of the building by the guys who couldn't understand. Hey, you have fun, Scottish bros. You get out. Get out, all of you.
Oh man, just crazy gigs. Yeah, that's awesome, man. And then I can't remember, we did something else where you were the system engineer in a festival somewhere, and I can't remember where. I just remember us talking in the parking lot somewhere, and it was good times.
Yeah, it's always fun, man. I miss it. I miss seeing my buddies for sure.
Man. Yeah,
and now I'm somewhere else.
Yeah, but things are looking up, and it looks like maybe I don't know. I know that looking at. There's a lot more positive things coming on the news. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe we'll start gearing up here and getting back to work. So
for sure.
That'll be fun. I know I've said it on here a couple of times that the first time that I'm, starting a show in a stadium, I'm probably going to be crying during the first song, it's been so long. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I saw it this morning on Facebook. What's the first song you're going to put through the PA when we come back to work? I was like, well, I'm going to think about Welcome Back, Kotter. I don't know. That seemed like the fun thing to me.
Of course.
I don't know if anybody gets that humor. But I have to make one correction, Tater. The school I went to is New England Institute of Technology. I don't know how I could have buffed that when I wrote it, because it was a seminal difference in where I wound up as opposed to where I was going in the beginning of my career. Yeah, them and Full Sail.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Take us through that. Like, first of all, were you a musician when you were a kid? Like, what gave you the bug?
So my parents, old school Italians. I'm the first generation American, right? First one born here. So the 70s, for me as a kid, we all went to the communion parties, the weddings, and all that, right? So the 70s was all about the disco. Right. So that was the first thing I knew. And this wasn't a DJs. It wasn't a thing yet. You'd had bands, like horn sections and singers and guitar players, and they'd be loud and they're at a wedding. And it was awesome. And we would see these. That was my real introduction to music, was seeing live bands at these community things that we did with family. And then you got involved in, like, my parents wanted me to learn how to play piano. So I took lessons for a while and I didn't like it. So I kind of gravitated to guitar, learned how to play, taught myself, and then went on to study. But I got to the point where, like, there was no way I was going to be any good at playing here relative to where I live, right? In Boston, you had Berklee, we had a lot of great players. So you learn where you are quick. And I still wanted to be in music. I still love doing it. And while I was playing in bands, I would learn how to use a small recording unit, and then PA systems. We rehearsed in a soundstage audio in Providence. Was Dennis Verducci owned the building and the spots and the gear, and we need guys to go do stuff. So it started that way. And I got bigger than the pond, right? There was only so much you could do in here. You had to leave. There was no way around it. So I went to school. I picked up electronics. First of all, I figured, oh, this is good. If I burn the gear, I'll know how to fix it. That was my thought process.
No, it's great. It's a great thought process.
So yeah, I did 2 years of school there, learned, the ins and outs to bench level repair tech. and then worked for local sound companies around the area, started mixing more and more bands, and then realized like, I got to get out of here. But the only place that was really putting people into big sound companies was Full Sail. And that was where I was, at the same time I'm playing, I'm a stagehand. So my first stagehand gig was for a Clare Brothers Earth Day gig in 91 or 92, I think. A couple of years out of high school. I had already been the dishwasher, the roofing guy, the construction guy. I drove a dynamite truck for the construction company, right? That they used to blow up garbage in the ground. Oh, that was awesome, dude. You want to get not bothered on the highway, just put the signs down and you got all the road around you. Whether there's anything in the truck or not, you're just going to get left alone.
I love it.
So yeah, I had done all these dumb jobs formative jobs, things that you don't want to do anymore. Yeah. And I wound up going through New England Tech and doing pretty well there, and thought, I might have a thing with this. And then after being a stagehand and seeing these gigs, the Genesis We Can't Dance was that year. The Division Bell came through Foxborough Stadium that year. That Earth Day gig with Clare Brothers. And it was, it was obvious at that point who the two big companies were. It was them. And it stayed with me for a couple more years as a stagehand. And it was during those years, and again, I'm going to name drop now because as a stagehand, when I was done with Loading in Lights or Marley or whatever junk I had no interest in, I would go out in the seats in the pavilion, and I would go, sit 20 rows behind front of house and just listen to guys, that were doing everything I wanted to do. And I remember seeing Greg Price there when he was mixing Chicago. Yeah. And that was one of those early days. And I just walked into the back. Hey, you mind if I watch? Nope. He's over there with a CP10 and I think a Harrison console. Nothing. A couple months later, Bob Scoville is there doing Rush with I don't remember what tour it was at the time. Same thing. Just walk behind there, shut up, watch what's going down. Don't say nothing. Mellencamp, same thing. All during that first 2 years, I would go and watch all of these guys on these bigger tours, how they operated. And I realized that there's not a lot of yelling and screaming. There's not a lot of behaving like a jerk, like I was used to seeing in clubs, right? Because you just, the place you are, right?
Yeah.
So I started talking to as many of them as I could. And then I decided I'm going to go to Full Sail. And we went down there and worked, and a lot of people dogged the school and they talk all kinds of nonsense. But at the time, and I can't speak on what it is now because I haven't been there in so long, but at the time it was a rough schedule. You were eligible for school 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You could have a class at 9 a.m. You could have a lab at 1 a.m. You were going to get up. And their idea was that you are going to be working with artists. You're subjected to their schedule, not yours. So that was the point. But I wanted to go back into recording at that point. I had already done the PA stuff and I want to go try and make records. And as soon as I got out of school, I realized this is no good. There's I don't have the patience for it, I guess.
Yeah.
I know that some people agonize over the live shows we do now. We agonize over those, but it goes. And you're done. And the next day you get another shot at it.
Yep.
But, listening to something that I have to live with, that my name is on it, was just I can't make that decision. I can't let things go as well as I guess most other people could. It's
you're absolutely right. Too. I mean, that's one of the hardest things of being a recording guy. There's records that I can't listen to now because I remember some specific thing that I screwed up on in the mix or whatever. And with a live show, it's you could mute the PA and they'll forget about it by the end of the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They'll let you hear about it, but
they will. But you know what I'm saying? It's any sort of mistake is it's done. It's over. We're on to the next.
Yeah.
Thing. Yeah.
The part of that that sat with me was after I got done with school, I went down to Texas and started knocking on doors. And a couple of us, there was 5 of us living in an apartment like animals. And we would literally get in one car and drive around the whole Dallas Metroplex area and go from one sound company, production company to the other. We can do this, fix cables and fix amplifiers. We know how to put gear together, this and that. And we get a little bit of work out of this guy, a little bit out of there. little bit out of the other, and it kept us going until, you know, I got a chance to work at Shoko, and Richard Bratcher, God bless him, gave me a shot and said, come on over on Tuesday and let's see. And that, I mean, I should preface that with Lynn Butler was the guidance counselor at school who got me an interview with him while he had come down there. So the school was very, very, you know,
instrumental.
Without them, without them,
Yeah.
it would not have happened.
Yeah.
You know, they would have.
So
been
did you move to Dallas with the intention of finally ending up at Shoko, or
Yeah.
did you just move to Dallas? Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that was it. You got to live there. That was pretty much what everybody from the road was like. You know, you're going to live here. You're going to work in the shop when you're not on tour. And I went into the shop and started working with all his staff. You know, and you're in one department at a time for a week at a time over 6 or 8 weeks, I believe. And they beat you up. And if you don't work out, you don't work out, but you get a shot that way. You know, they can figure you out in the shop pretty fast, you know. So that was the beginning of it. And then, you know, the tours started about 6 months after I started working there. And I started off with the Moody Blues and moved out into another, Linda Ronstadt, I believe, was right after that, both with an orchestra. But it was circling back to the point about letting stuff go. It was that George Massenburg came out to the Linda Ronstadt show because he had produced the record with Nathaniel Kunkel, I believe. His father was playing drums. We had God, he's deceased now. Marvin Hamlish was conducting the orchestra.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
It was a really, really slick, high responsibility being an audio there. And I was not aware of what it was like to work around somebody. Linda had perfect pitch. The first day of rehearsal, when she walked in, she picked off somebody's violin out of tune, 2 chairs in. Somebody, you know, with her back to it.
Yeah.
And they turned around, sure enough, and I was like, oh, this is going to be trouble or whatever. And then a few shows in, George, Mr. Massenburg, I should say, shows up. And he's having the grandest time. And the front of house mixer, Randy Petrosky, introduces me to him. And he said, I don't know how you guys do this. We agonize over a silly reverb or a piano note or a voice or something for months, you know, and you guys come in, you put these giant speakers together in the air. It sounds fantastic every night, you know. I thought, maybe I didn't make a mistake. Maybe the studio really wasn't for me.
Nice.
You know.
Well, that's good. When when you have a moment in your life where you get resolved in that kind of thing, that's amazing, dude. Right on.
Yeah. It's been a fortunate path because I've gotten to work with some unbelievably gifted artists and engineers, yourselves included. We don't take it for granted. I sure don't. But
well, okay,
I still love it.
Was there somebody early on in the Shoko days or maybe even a little bit later that was kind of your mentor that kind of took you under your wing and you learned how to be a system engineer, how to be a mixer? Like who were those guys?
Early on, we had, let me see, the Randy Willie was instrumental in his ability to remain calm when everything else was going sideways. Right?
Way
Tater,
beyond calm, but yeah.
It was. I've described him, 100 times as a heads in the freezer kind of guy. Like ice water runs through that dude. Nothing bothers him.
Nothing.
Dave Moncrief, again, rest his soul.
Yeah.
Having him early, seeing how there was nothing he could not figure a way around if he had to.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just them either. It was also some of the lighting crew chiefs. There was this idea of touring at the time was that there is always a problem to be solved. We can all solve it together, or you can be the one pain in everybody's neck. You just learn to be not that guy. Dave was very good about that. Mike Allison.
Yep.
I mean,
Mike Allison,
I'm going to leave somebody out here and I'm going to feel.
No. I don't mean to do that to you. I'm just,
okay.
I'm just saying that the point is, for our people that are watching out there, you had a group of well-known dudes that kind of took you under their wing and said, hey dude, come check this out, or this is the way that we do it. And I think in some ways that art doesn't exist anymore, and it's art. And I think it's up to us that are a little bit older to be those guys. Like I want to be Dave Moncrief and to somebody else. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to stress to older generation guys that we should be the ones that are like, share everything, you know, it's not yours, give it.
Oh,
yeah,
man. You cannot express that enough. Like the tricks of the trade are tricks, but if you don't know the trade, your tricks don't do you any good.
That's right.
And I'm pretty good at it. Like I've never, I don't take it lightly, but we don't drop screws out of the PA. I don't have safety issues. Like these are things that happen because you have procedures and you follow them. You learn them from people who do things properly. Yeah. There are no shortcuts to doing things right. And that is something that you can't stress enough. But yeah, learning why, not just barking at somebody to do something your way, but this is why we do it this way, because
that's a great point.
Method to the madness.
Yeah.
I just always remember when Johnny Roberts was mixing Aerosmith, and JW, he'd never professed to be any great engineer or anything, but man, he was tackling the toughest bands in the world. And you look over at his monitor rack, and this is way back before digital, and he never had a graphic EQ in those racks. What do you need a graphic EQ for? You know what I mean? One of the greatest mixers there was, doing Aerosmith in a stadium, didn't have a 31 band in the rack. So, there was some really smart people there doing some really cool stuff. No doubt about it.
Well, the difference there turns into like, where did the system engineer diverge and the mixer start for me? Right. Because I didn't. Right. And it was seeing the difference. Like you can't get away from the system engineer part of it. Even as a mixer, you're going to have to know what it is you're doing to the sound system. I think it's a much bigger skill to have. But at the same time, watching, like, John was one of the first guys that I saw who was respected worldwide when we were moving into stuff. I did after Ronstadt. It was funny. Moody Blues, Tour 1, Linda Ronstadt, Tour 2, Tour 3, Soundgarden. Right. So I was completely off the beaten path about where I'm going with it. And that was where I met Johnny. And we got to the first rehearsal, funny enough, which was in the Barrowlands in Scotland. And John walks up to Chris and says, "What's your favorite mic to sing on?" And Chris says, "I like the SM57. Front of house guys already running from front. No, you need this and that. John's already got a 57 taped up. He sticks it on there and off we go. Yeah. Yep. And this is the way it was. And he had been walking around on stage, an hour before they start with a, vocal mic and whatever, kicking wedges around. There's no graph. I'm driving the console for him. And it's like, "Hey, Johnny, where are the EQs here? What are you talking about? I got 32 of them on the desk. I don't need no more."
Yeah, exactly. Why would I need any more than that?
Yeah, that's what he'd say. I got
so the SEs did things to get the guy to that spot. And then the mixer with no gear at all, like using his ears, his knobs. And that's the end of it. It was a microphone and EQ output and he was done. And we went everywhere. We opened up for Metallica. We played all these festivals. He would walk in. Everybody knew who he was. Right. He's got the oldest rig on earth because we're just, old Harrisons and 600 wedges. And nobody here is going to know what all that is, but it is literally like 1980 era equipment. Right. 15 years later, all the stuff that was at the end of its life. And this guy's burning the house down with whatever he's got in front of him. All right. That's an engineer, right? That's the guy and he's a mixer too. He knows what's going on. Benji was coming around at that point with the Stones. Howard was doing Vince Gill and all this. We had some really unbelievable talents. Rob Colby mixing Phil Collins in that era. That was all going on at the time that I started there. And I was fortunate enough
putting around there.
Yeah, I've never met Trip, truthfully. Yeah. It's funny enough. He works out in the same office at Claire Global now, but I don't see him.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. No, that's just me. I live elsewhere.
There's been probably 3 shows in my life where I've like stood in front of house and just went, I don't even know where to start. Like, this sounds beyond what the record sounds like. There's been 3 shows where I've watched other people and just been like, I I don't even know
Yeah.
what to do. And Trip was one of those guys. So yeah, man, he's a badass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, that's awesome that you came from that. But I need us now that we're the little bit of the older generation to be the ones that are like, hey, little fighter, come over here, because and I keep touting the simplicity part of this, mic choice, mic placement, high pass filter, low pass filter are like the tools that you need, period.
Yeah.
And the go-to right now is technology. And so I think that without a good bed of simplicity and knowing the basics, just stuffing a plugin on something and not knowing why you're doing it it's going to turn on you. It's going to be bad. So yeah, man, I mean, it's awesome that you came up in that time, but I feel, and part of the reason that we do this thing is because I feel like we should be those guys now, So
the reality for us, if to be those guys, is there's an understanding, I think, and this is me, my personal philosophy is that and I said this maybe wrong for quite a while. It was maybe not as nice as it could have been put, but that the PA systems are getting better and the engineers are getting worse. It's not entirely true. I think the reference is getting worse. And this goes back to a discussion I got with Howard years ago, Howard Page, doing the Tejano Music Awards in Texas. So we did 5 days of rehearsals, and at the PA sound, gigantic Prism stadium array in the Alamo Dome. I mean, gigantic. The delays were bigger than the typical, PA system. And he would mix the last band of every week because it would be some international act without, and it would be phenomenal sound. But the whole day, when the whole show was running on TV, it was garbage. I mean, all day long, just kazoo like PA system. Sounded, kazoo. I got that one from you, buddy.
The old kazoo.
So yeah, leaving the gig, like, Howard, what did you do differently to the PA system? He's like, mate, it's nothing with the PA. It's the reference. Most of these people listening to the music in a blown out car stereo, and that's what they think it's supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
So to take it a little bit milder than that, is that like the kids today, like most of them have never heard vinyl, or I'm going to say a lot of them have. And if they have, it's reissued. It's been mastered after A to D converters, right? There's not the same thing anymore. I'm blaming them for not having nourishing food and not growing is not really their fault.
No, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I've been saying that for a long time, that it's like, if you grew up in an era where MP3, not even 192, 128K MP3 was and also the loudness wars where everything was right up to clip the entire time, no dynamics. If that's what you grew up with, you're only replicating that as a mixer.
That's your head blueprint. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the ear training, right? So ear training is way more important. I tell anybody that contacts me and wants to learn from me, that's one of the first things I tell them is like, listen to these records. These are the records that you need to listen to because of dynamics and how good they sound. And every single kid, I'm telling you, I've had like 4 or 5 20-year-old kids come back to me and just go, that's the most amazing thing I've ever heard, and it's like, yeah, okay. So now you know what sounds good. Yeah.
Well, that's, again, it's not musical taste either. For a while, like you had all these R&B records. Like, oh, this one has 29 hertz on it somewhere. Oh, this one's got 34 hertz on. Like, who gives a shit? Like the song doesn't, I don't understand any of that. Like, but they were testing the boundaries of what a speaker would reproduce.
Right.
That was never my intention as an engineer, like to get behind, like I don't care what 10 hertz sounds like out of this box. It's nothing to do with it. There's a little bit of that gymnastics too. But in all sense, like there's a lot of great young mixers. Tom Wood, the kid who was mixing Shawn Mendes, I got to listen to his sound check in Toronto at the stadium. God Almighty, Rogers Center.
Oh, Rogers.
Right. in 10 minutes of tracks on an S6L, it sounds like an album in front of it. Well, yeah, you got a kid who plays guitar and sings. He comes like that's his thing, a guitar and a vocal. So there's a very small basis of what that kid's reference is, the artist who writes. So his mixers are going to go the same way. But if you show up like, a bad version of Daft Punk with garbage samples and these things that are unlistenable to me. I mean, there's a lot of records are unlistenable. I don't need that in the PA. Like, we can't be out here irritating a stadium full of people. It's not really the point, right? Whether, so yeah, the references that they have without a live band, is hard to quantify. But, records aren't made that way for the most part in pop music. So it's weird, I guess, in some of the instances, like you'll have a pop record that's completely synthetic, a lot of writers, a lot of session guys playing, but the instruments are not real, right? They're all samples, keys, pads, maybe drum loops, things like that. When you break it down to like Van Halen, kick, snare, hat, bass, a guitar, 3 vocals, there's
kick,
nothing
snare,
there.
a lot of hat.
Kicks there a lot of hat. That was my last tape I found from Sonosphere. Oh my God, that riveted hi-hat. Oh, yeah. A lot of it has to do with the song to me, as far as mixing, like you're going back to mix the record through a sound system that's really good nowadays, as opposed to trying to, see if you could knock the back window out of the bar with the 818s you brought into Moe's Tavern when it started. Right. A little bit of a difference, and the responsibility is quite different.
That was always the goal, mixing a club, wasn't it?
Yeah. How many of the wine glasses can I rattle off the bar?
Yeah.
But that was a thing you said. I read in one of your interviews, Pooch, with the tools we have at our disposal these days, between smart and alignment, the consoles, and the speaker systems, right? There's really not a lot of leeway for excusing horrible sound in shows, right?
No excuse.
There has to be some guideline. And, I think I'm in it. I'd like to think I am for the most part. But everybody's different. My reference is different. It started from real instruments, real players at a very young age. It started with basic instruments of like an acoustic guitar, a piano. That's me. A 30-year-old kid now, what's his reference? You're already into the synthetic music or synthetic instruments, right? So that's what I say is my reference. The engineers haven't gotten worse. I think the reference has. And, it's hard to quantify. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm full of shit, but I think there's something to that.
No, there absolutely is. So what I find very interesting is a lot of us rock mixers that mixed, loud guitars, Limp Bizkit, whatever, loud guitars and shit for years are now the engineers of choice for, because the pop acts can't find engineers that know shit about real instruments. And that's what the pop guys want. They want a real band. They want their guitar to be as huge as a rock show. They want the impact that rock mixers get. So I find it really fascinating that some of the top rock guys are now they've moved into this genre of pop, myself included. I ended up in Justin Bieber,
Is that happening with country, Frank? I don't know anything about country at all, really. But I know country music isn't country music of old. It's more rockish. So is that what country guys are looking for? How did you get over to country?
How did I get over to country? So my illustrious skills as a system engineer were in demand. I had worked with Pete Healy in 2008, 2009 with Alter Bridge, right? Crushing rock band. I mean, Pooch, I had to follow you at sound waves every day, and I was just really cursing myself for it.
Oh man, come on.
Oh dude, those guys would come out doing Addicted to the Pain, and it was just like, oh, I'm the Maxell guy now. This is awesome. I get to sit in front of the house. And we had our days with Captain Clipboard behind us, right? He looked like he was gonna save us from Gilligan's Island. He was starched, right? This guy was fully starched all day long. Yeah, pith helmet, clipboard, the whatever it was around him, like a fireman's
lights just blinking the whole time.
Yeah. And we had to keep it in the ballpark. Now, again, learning good lessons, right? I had him in front of me and Kevin Lemoyne behind, doing Green Day. Like up there's, oh no, sorry, I had the guy from not Feeder, the English band that was right after me.
I don't remember, dude.
Guy with the SD7 in front of the house. They sounded phenomenal. There was not a bad sounding band that day. Yeah. There really wasn't. That whole day on that stage, doesn't matter. It was awesome. And he was talking about I forgot where we were going with this. I was just having such a good time about that. But I was working with Pete, on Alter Bridge. And years later, he took over mixing Luke Bryan out of Nashville. He had moved to Nashville and was mixing them. So they asked me to go out and design the PA for his first real big go at being an arena band. They said, oh, we're doing full arenas, 270, everything's sold out. We need a PA. What would you do? I said, oh, how much you want to spend? He said, don't worry about that. What would you do? Right? Okay. This is what I would do. And they did. And I went down to Nashville for about a month and I trained 2 system engineers. This is exactly how I tune the PA system. This is exactly why you want to hang it this way. This is exactly why you want to do these things. If you follow these basic rules about the sound system, you will be fine. And off they went. And the first year he was out there, he had another system engineer. Year after that, I became his second. And then in the middle of the year, he left to go work elsewhere, right after CMA Awards. So I came in halfway through, I think 2016, 15, and took over mixing from there. And that was how I moved into it. There have been in my run-ins in the Nashville set, as far as that goes, there are quite a few guys who are adept at mixing rock. Like the Jason Aldean show is a rock show.
It's funny how rock there's a portion of country that's really a rock show.
Yeah. Well, I remember before, Kid Rock popularized it, he had like the whole show review up there. It was more or less the lines of like dude and band, right? When you have the star, and his show was just ridiculous sounding how good it was. So there's a way to do this, but country's also, they're at the top of the loudness wars too now, right? It's the same thing. The masters that you listen to on the radio, they're big, heavy pumping songs, big ballads. There's nothing that's not in the wheelhouse of a rock mixer. And sometimes more. Like I think less is more in the instance of mixing things like that. You let them go, let them breathe a little bit. And they're the old guys like us who went by and doing these rock bands without a lot of the new tools, like at the very basis. It's mic placement, mic choice, high, low pass filter, and boom, left and right pans. It lends itself to country music a lot more than pop. Pop is a different kind of vibe. You're trying to recreate compression thresholds and envelopes and things to fall in the mix when you bring the live band to it. These are skills that they don't get talked about enough. I don't think like a very skilled mixer is going to be good in country. He's going to be good in rock. He's going to be good in, it doesn't really matter, right? If you understand the genre you're trying to mix, it really doesn't make a difference. You still have to have those basic skills we talked about earlier. But yeah, there's a lot of rock guys that are getting found out to be really much better mixers than people thought about. In Nashville, there's a lot of guys like
yes.
Tater, you're not that far off. There are quite a few good rock mixers that wound up doing country. They wound up doing pop. It's a little unusual. I went from Alice in Chains to Luke Bryan.
But I think you're absolutely right. It's if you have talent as a mixer and you understand the source, in other words, you understand whatever, a Luke Bryan record versus an Alice in Chains record, as a good mixer, the skills of the mixing part are the same. right?
Yeah.
It's just understanding the source and reproducing what the artist is looking for.
Yeah. But sometimes it's not enough.
Sorry.
I want to back up a bit because we've already got you mixing Luke Bryan here, and we missed a whole big part. I'd like to stress to the younger people listening, if you notice, Frank's not only done every job in the audio, live audio scene from from crew to monitor to systems engineer to mixing stadiums with Luke Bryan. So he's done it all. So, so if you think you're going to go out there and just be an engineer and stuff, if you want to keep busy, you got to look at all your
options.
Look at all your options. But we kind of skipped over going from Showco work to Godsmack. And I'd like to just get into that just a bit because you started out at monitors and moved to front of house. I want to hear all about that transition, how it happened.
Yeah, we skipped. There was a whole bunch
of like
bands
15
there
years I just skipped. Yeah. Well,
I want to bring it back.
All right, we'll bring it back. So I 95, 96, right? I get out of school, go to Showco. I start a couple of tours. I'm the low man on the totem pole, right? You're the garbage man of audio. You're going to run feeder. You're going to point speakers in the right direction. You're going to do that, right? The very basic skills of being a sound guy on tour.
Pins and jumpers.
Before that, I hung the EV PAs, the flashlight PA for Bernard Brown. So the pins and jumpers were like, that was like going to first class after getting my fingers broken in all kinds of ways with every other, the chains. Oh, you miss a chain on the the blue PA, and all of a sudden you've got a spine. Things are like completely out of whack. Everybody's looking at it. And it's like, why is all that? Oh, I missed a link somewhere up there. Take it all down. Do it again. And then all of a sudden I got to okay. All of you. Yeah. All those wheels, get them out of here. Right.
All of you.
So, I did the PA tech for a while, repair the PA. You're doing the maintenance, you're everything, right? To keep it running. You're basically like the guy who changes tires in the NASCAR pit crew. Right. And then you move up to, the monitor system engineer. At that point, like you become the interface with the band because they're the ones seeing you. Like, again, he's the guy who drives the garbage truck now, right? He's just going to take garbage from the guys on stage and be responsible for everything on stage. Right now you're mixing monitors, you're dealing with the band. And I had done several tours as just the PA mechanic, and we get out and nobody knows how to operate the monitor. It's like the monitor guy was an afterthought up until, I'd say middle 90s. But the tours, they're not going to start you on doing Janet Jackson. They're going to start you on smaller tours.
Yeah.
So a monitor mixer was like, well, we don't have one. Somebody here has to do it. Well, there's nobody here knows how to operate a desk that I'm with. So I kind of de facto, all right, I'm going to stand here for the rest of the night and just do this. I was pretty good at that, right? I never really had any trouble with it. And I wound up with, Iggy Pop at that point, Sponge. There was a couple others who were opening bands of headliners who really did bring their own guys. And then we were finishing up Ozfest, or we were just about to start Ozfest in 99, and ML called me, ML ProSites, for those of you who know or don't know. He called me and he said, hey, there's this band from Boston you got to go take care of on Ozfest. They're going to be huge, right? Yeah, whatever. So basically it's like you're going to be the monitor engineer for Ozfest, right? Back up Mike Adams doing Ozzy and take care of these guys. You got to make sure these guys are taken care of. Well, the first day, Sully Erna turns around, just smashes his guitar to pieces on stage, walks off, pissed off completely. Second day, they call me to the hotel. Hey, we need to talk. If you're going to be the guy that watches us every day, we need some stuff. So an hour and a half conversation with them. Everything's good. Day 3, turns around, spins a Les Paul into the ground. The body takes off, smashes his guitar tech in the face. He's off to the hospital. This guy out of nowhere comes up behind me and says, hey, does he do that every day? And I said, I don't know, man. This is only my second day here. So kind of hard to tell what every day looks like. But so far, yeah.
So far.
So we have a day off in Nashville the next day. They call me back to the hotel. I think, they're getting fired. They're going to bring a guy in, right? He goes in, he goes, oh, that was awesome, man. I was so happy yesterday. I broke a guitar. What do you mean you were happy? That was awesome. I was having a great time. I broke it. the guy who was over there saw me, and he's from Gibson. They're going to give us an endorsement. I was like, you have to be kidding me. You have to be kidding me. So we did all of Ozfest. It was great. Every day you'd watch the pavilion fill up at 3 p.m, and they would just tear the house down. And they were formidable live, right out of the gate. And
Still are.
Yeah. Well, I haven't seen them in about 2 years, but yeah, they were, crushing live band.
Yeah.
And we go into opening for Sabbath in Europe. Horrific fan experience for them. They really, the first 30 rows of a stadium are like, get off the stage. We want to see Sabbath. And he would just taunt the audience. And by the end of the show, everybody loves him. So I wound up doing that for 6 years, mixing monitors for him, from 99 into 2005.
Wow. I didn't realize you were there for that long as the monitor guy. Wow.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Usually monitor guys don't last that long, do they?
No, that's not what I meant. You know what I mean? It's like, I pictured you there for like a couple of years as the monitor guy and then for the house. But anyway.
No, I was there for a while.
Wow.
So in the midst of that, I was doing Pantera.
Oh, right. Because wait, let me back up, because you were my monitor guy and had to leave to do Godsmack, right? An Alice Cooper tour.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. And you had to leave me to do Godsmack. That's right.
That's right. Look at that. I was Tater.
I forgot all about that. I just remember. I hate to interrupt the story, but the only reason I remember you as my tech out there, and I remember you had to leave, but we had STP's borrowed STP's purple drapes from their purple tour for Alice Cooper. And it was like the skirt around the drum riser, and we had the drapes hanging and all this stuff. And I had this little doll bobblehead on my desk.
Yeah.
And one day Frank just walks right out to the drum riser, gets a pair of scissors, cuts the purple thing off right in the middle of the drum riser skirt, and makes a hat for my little bobblehead. I forgot all about that.
Oh my God.
Sorry,
that was
coming back.
Yeah, it's like PTSD. You're starting to remember things you shouldn't have, like hypnotism.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we totally forgot about that.
Yeah, I was Tater's system. I forgot about that. I was the monitor system engineer on Alice Cooper tour. He was the mixer for. So yeah, I stayed in that position of mixing monitors for 5.5, 6 years. And then we were asked to do Metallica, the Saint Anger tour. We had just finished a good 18-month stretch of the record tour. Godsmack toured extensively. They never went home. It was none of this 4-week vacation.
No.
It was, same as all of us did. They'd be 14, 15 months. We might get Christmas off if it times out, but we're gigging. And we had just come home in November from I don't remember. Honestly, I can't remember what it was, but they called us up and said, "Oh, we're going to go do this Metallica. We get 3 weeks with them in December in Europe." So we go over there, start the thing in Norway, and it's just, it's Metallica, and it's sick. It's just big. It's gigantic. It's on fire. It's moving. Like, it's awesome.
It's big.
It's awesome, right? I'm like Beavis and Butthead excited about it.
Yes.
So, they're doing good. I'm still mixing monitors. And we had monitor desk, big mix, front of house console, our front of house console, my monitor console at front of house. Paul Owen was in the tunnel doing all in ears. Like, he was out with TVs, nowhere in the building. The closer to the truck, I think the better for him. And so we did that. And then we had day off shows that we'd have to take off and go do these club events. So there was one evening we finished, and band said, "Listen, we need to talk to you." Okay, we're going to talk. And, we need to find another front of house guy because Tony's leaving. And I was like, okay. I thought the way the conversation started was that I was getting fired. While we were doing these Metallica dates, I would see Mick and Paul talking to management, talking to Sully, and like, oh, this is not going good. The complaining was just getting to be too much. I figured, I'm hacking up this monitor gig. I was new to in-ears at that point because there was no...
And plus, what I remember too is they weren't used to the in the round either. Remember the stage and the back line, because it wasn't a traditional back line because it was in the round. So there was a few hiccups to get around.
Yeah, they weren't ready for ears, right? Robbie Merrill, the bass player, had been playing on ears for 2 years at that point, so he was fine. Moving the other guys to it like that overnight, because they just refused to do it bit by bit as we went. And so I thought, I'm getting fired. This is not going good. And singer looks at me and he's like, "No, idiot. We need to know whether you want to move to front of house and mix there, or
you're
whether
so fucking hired."
And,
Not getting out of it.
I said, yeah, I'll go mix front of house. I figure at that point, like, how hard can it be? I've been doing monitors for you guys forever. It stinks. Like, oh, if you ever want to come back, it doesn't work out. I was like, there's no chance I'm ever going back there. That was literally what I said. There's no chance I'm going back there again. And my first show was on a Prism rig in a small arena somewhere with them. Randy Willie was a system engineer. They told me, don't mix it like a monitor mix. Oh, that's a good tip. Okay, I'll remember that.
Hey,
2 big side fills. Yep.
Yeah, 2 big side fills. That's pretty much what I went for the first time. It's like, oh, I'm not good at this at all. I better sort it out. And then right into a Metallica show, where we're in the round fully. It was wild, right? It's about unhinged for me. Like, now, okay, here's your XL4. Go do your thing.
Yep.
And after about 3-4 days, we were good. We were okay. After about a week and a half, I was like, okay, I'm feeling like when I unmute at night before the show starts, all right, I'm casual. I still get the butterflies. I still get them. But at that point, it wasn't terror when I was going to unmute.
It wasn't sheer terror.
Yeah, right? But it was about 3 weeks into that they had just finished their line check, afternoon line check. And I started mine. And I start to knob away again like I do. And Mick turns around. He's like, "Mate, what are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "What? I'm doing line check." He goes, "No, you're fucking around." He goes, "Every day I watch you and listen to you spin knobs on everything till each thing sounds good. And then you put it together again and you spend 40 minutes of an hour show getting it back to where you were at the end of the night last night. You need to stop this. It's just annoying everybody, right?" In the most Mick way you could possibly.
Wow.
Right?
That's amazing.
He's like, "We don't spend this kind of time. Like, we don't finish with the PA until the first song because it's going to change. We're putting the stick to it, right?" Okay. He said, "I'll tell you what, put a set of headphones on, just make sure your gains are in the right place. And then I'm telling you, when you start the show tonight, you're going to be in a much better place to start with than you were at any point during this." Okay. So let's try it. And, it's embarrassing, right? Yeah. It's embarrassing. You think, look at what I'm doing here. Oh yeah, you're making it worse for 40 minutes. And that became a thing. Like, you cannot, once you're in flight, once the whole production's moving the way it is, you don't carry a desk so you can change everything around every day. You just
that's right.
Right. And then it was shortly after that I had my epiphany with Howard and Dave Scaff. So Howard Page and Dave Scaff were probably finishing school after getting schooled in the real world by Mick. And those guys didn't give anything about what I did to the PA system. Yeah, give them. We don't care. Like, they don't care. I've heard all that other nonsensical stuff. Oh yeah, none of that. They don't care. Yeah. But Howard Page.
By the way, Howard Page was one of the other 3. Trip Califf, Howard Page.
Oh, of the 3 mixers.
Of the 3 mixers that made me go, what? I don't even know how to begin. So if you guys don't know anything about Howard Page, check him out.
Yeah, he's got a brilliant article. It's online. Why the low end is why the subs are ruining your mix.
That's great.
The article from top to bottom is a brilliant explanation of a flat system tuning for festival style events or you're bringing a system engineer into a mixer's world for the first time when he's giving him a truly white piece of paper to draw on that isn't tilted one way or the other. And his idea is that your mixing console program material is correct. You've spent all that time in rehearsals with playback or the band rehearsal and the rest of it to get the mix correct. Now you have to make sure that the system will reproduce it clearly, right?
Yeah.
Flat response, right? It's not for everybody, but it works really well if you can manipulate the system the way you need to on a day-to-day basis, right? It's never these big things anymore. The systems are that good. But with Howard, it was, this is why you do it. This is how we're going to time align everything. These are the elements of tuning, EQing the system. This is why we do this. And if you can do this with every system that you're ever going to have in front of you, where you're carrying a console, you'll have much more consistent results. And you can go back to mixing and not fixing things that you have made mistakes within the system. You're in a much better spot. And Dave Scaff really brought the technology of virtual playback to me. Like, this is, if you don't have this, you're missing a giant part of a weapons arsenal that will put you head and shoulders above everybody. You'll get to rehearse your mixes much longer than the band will be able to play them. And you can get much more detailed with the mixes you deliver.
Totally. To me, it is the number one weapon that I don't even know how I used to do it without it. Like, if you said I could have an SD7 with no virtual playback, or I can have a X32 with virtual playback, I'll take the X32. That's how important virtual playback is to me, because I can spend hours and hours like grooming my mix to turn it into, what I want it to be. So that's absolutely an important statement.
Yeah. So after that lesson from Howard and Dave, funny enough, the next thing I went after was the Mix Engineer's Handbook. It's I honestly, I wish I could quote you the press and the publishing and the rest of it, but that is the title, the Mix Engineer's Handbook. They're probably up to like 5th or 7th edition by now. Nothing to do with live sound. Nothing to do with live sound. It is mixing from one end of the console to the other, your dynamics, your time-based stuff from the biggest mixers of history that have done this. Joe Ciccarelli, Al Schmidt, Jimmy, there's just everybody who, and there's a few, Andy Johns is in there, how they do drum sounds, things like that. And there are tons of things to take from that as far as, mixing techniques on the desk. The things we talked about, like trying to get the envelopes to match tempos in compression and gating, the width, why you do stereo, the phase smearing on instruments, multiplying instruments to do different things with them. Why not? We got digital desks now with 200 channels. You can build mults of everything. You can do these amazing stereo spreads with stuff before you even get to the plugin. Before you get to the plugins, you can do that in like the most analog method, which is kind of what I prefer doing, is just having things rebuilt instead of going into the processing, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely it does. Yeah, absolutely.
That's more along what I do. The other thing about, learning these things with the virtual sound check is that you have so much time to keep playing with it, keep doing things like that. And it works out really good for me. It's the way I prefer to work. Channel counts get crazy, but.
So to back up just a hair, you went from, that was your first foray into a bigger front of house, real front of house mixing, was back to Godsmack. But, and so you carried kind of your front of house career on. Then I got to say, I heard you mix Alice in Chains once, and it was phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant. Really just, I know it's a great band and they have great songs, and you represented it so well. Sounded just absolutely fantastic. I couldn't even tell you what PA we're at a festival. But you didn't just do front of house from there on out, right? I mean, you're still designing systems. You go out of systems that you'll still do it all, right?
I will do whatever it takes to pay the bills. I don't have any kind of, there's nothing wrong with any part of doing audio. If I know how to do it, I'll do it. But you
have a real joy in mixing front of house, but you find joy in these other things too, right? System design and system engineering, whatever.
Yeah, it's an important thing. After even being with Luke, like a lot of that turned into being responsible for the design in the stadiums for the show. We have a lot of leeway we're given a lot of leeway as the sound guys out there. And I have the best possible team on planet Earth behind me in the office. If I need anything, if I need a question answered, it's there. Right.
Yeah.
So the support team for me in Claire Global is beyond description. It's hard to overstate how big it is. The part of the design that is the most critical for me in the stadiums is the PA system delivering audio to every sold seat in the house, right? And this again comes from me being a kid and not having money to sit down front or whatever, thinking like, oh, you're going to sit in the nosebleed seats, it's going to sound like garbage. It's not really the case anymore, right? But it can be if you aim it wrong, right? You can't hit anything with an arrow. It's just a bad idea, right? We've got software now.
It's not spray and pray anymore. It's
there it is. I was waiting for that. Yeah. No, it's a big difference, right? I take it seriously. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I got really deep into AFMG software, Ease Focus, where we're designing they build GLL files, global loudspeaker libraries that have all the parameters of a speaker in it. That you plug into the software, and it will tell you what you're doing, where you're doing it. We talked a little bit about this early on before we got started. It was like these positions of delays in stadiums are historic. You know, they usually go to a stadium show. It's like, well, this is what we've done for the last 15 years. Well, the PA systems now are considerably more aggressive for horn-wise, high-end wise, right? You don't need as much 9 times out of 10. There's not as many boxes with the amount of drivers and the way they function. So we were allowed to move delay positions outward farther, sell more seats, see if we can put stuff down, get rid of some of the imaging issues by deploying the PA closer to the bodies at more appropriate angles. It meant we could turn the delays down a little bit, aim them into places where reflections weren't coming back onto the floor. And it's been pretty good. You know, and the first time I did it personally was at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. It was terrifying to walk in like, oh my God, this is the first of 18 stadiums this year. This is one of the biggest vertically from the ground up. If I don't cover this the way I said, I'm going to be in deep trouble.
For sure.
A little bit more pressure than just turning the knobs at the front of house position, wasn't it?
Yeah. And this again goes back to the system engineer is crucial. It's crucial at that point. You know, if we miss a little bit in an arena, we miss a little bit. You miss a little bit in a stadium, it's a couple of thousand seats.
It's big.
Right? It's big. So that being able to get involved in knowing how the software operates, being able to drop a system into the software. But the biggest skill was learning how to build the virtual venue in the software. We did one with you, right?
I was going to say thank you, because if any of our Iron Maiden people are out there listening, Frank was the stadium designer in that. And I couldn't say on a limited amount of time for us coming in and what you and Claire had planned, man, that show was a massive success. For our only North American stadium show on an overnighter. So many compliments on the sound, and do a newer arena also, right? Newer stadium in Los Angeles. So Frank was instrumental in designing that.
That was scary. I'll say that. I was a little. No, I'm not joking. I'm afraid I don't want to make that mistake. And taking the data out of CAD drawings, heights, elevations, seating locations. The vertical line where all the seats are physically, and then your system engineers who are out there use that to place your system in the space virtually. They know what the curves are going to be. They know what the taper is for amplitude tapers up and down. They know the predictive response. There's nothing better than being able to do that and knowing that it's a success. And that's, again, last seat in the house. And it's a little bit more responsibility. And that's where Tater was going, because the first time I had to be on the end of my own, it didn't look right. right? There's the other one. Like my eyes are telling me, oh my God, I've missed by miles. But your ears, looking at something that big in a 3D space, on paper is one thing. Looking at it,
getting there,
looking at it in the real world's a whole other thing. Yeah.
We did the same thing. Texas Stadium, where we had to have an argument with, the video screens. Got to turn it off. It's driving us nuts. But yeah, it makes a big difference.
We should also thank Randy Weinholtz. He came out as the systems engineer on that with hackers and Tim Peeling. Really make that a success.
I had the dream team. It was great.
And
maybe we'll get a little bit into that, but we're running out of time.
Oh shit, we are. Dang it.
We're actually over. But hey, Frank, thank you for coming, dude.
Yeah,
and
we are.
all of you tune into the question and answer period.
Yeah,
we got a bunch more questions for Frank. We're going to go another half an hour and get some more stuff going on. But thank you for coming, Frank, and thanks for giving of your valuable time, and we appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Frank. Honored to be here with you guys. I wish I could see you in person, and when I do, there's going to be kisses for everybody.
I know. I mean, when we're all going to see our family, our road family again, it's going to be, it's going to be a huge deal.
Yeah.
So thanks for coming. Hey guys, next week on Wrong End of the Snake is Guy Charbonneau. For more than 40 years, Guy Charbonneau has recorded and mixed projects for an exceptionally wide range of talent within the music, television, and motion picture industries. His passion for recording live music remains unparalleled and fuels his drive for capturing a clear, pristine, authentic sound every time. And it's this approach or attention to detail that has really allowed him to remain as one of the pro audio's foremost sound engineers on the scene today. He's mixed over 50 platinum and gold records, won an Emmy and a Tech Award. He's the owner of Les Mobiles, a broadcast recording truck that is legendary. So next week, Guy Charbonneau, tune in to that. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our videos. We're so grateful that you found us. Please tell your friends. We feel like we have a really great thing here, and many that don't know about it. Thank you. Subscribe and smash like on all of our videos, please. Thanks a lot, guys. Thank you to Frank, and have a good one.
This concludes another fantastic episode of The Wrong End of the Snake, starring Ken Pooch Van Druten and Kevin Tater McCarthy. Don't forget to follow and like us at all your favorite social media outlets at Wrong End of the Snake. If you're looking for past episodes, head on over to the YouTube channel, where we're going right now for the Q&A with today's guest. All your past episodes are there posted for your enjoyment at your convenience. But if you'd like to interact and badger the guest and the host in future live episodes, please sign up for the Zoom webcast. You won't regret it. Thank you for tuning in to The Wrong End of the Snake.